What if I told you that the version of you you're chasing is already inside you, quietly waiting for permission to exist? The problem isn't that you're broken. The problem is, you've been living as someone you were never meant to be. It took me 10 years to realize that. 10 years of pretending, 10 years of shrinking, 10 years of wearing a version of myself that felt just barely acceptable. I was 17 the first time I truly felt like I was disappearing. It was late. I was sitting alone in my room with the door half closed. The only light came from my laptop screen, glowing cold and blue on my face. The world outside was quiet, but inside my thoughts were loud, heavy, constant. They didn't scream. They whispered, over and over again, "You're not enough. You should be more. Why can't you be like them?" And the worst part? I believed them. I believed I was falling behind in a race that everyone else seemed to be winning. I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew that whoever I was wasn't working. So I started collecting masks. The responsible one, the funny one, the high achiever, the quiet one who never complains, the yes, everything's fine version of me. And every time I put one of them on, people clapped. They liked me more. They smiled. They approved. But deep down, I felt fake and exhausted. I used to think I was tired because I wasn't sleeping enough. Now I know I was tired because I was constantly abandoning myself. I said yes when I wanted to scream no. I laughed at jokes that made me uncomfortable. I gave people pieces of me I didn't even have to give, and the world kept rewarding it. Because the world loves a version of you that doesn't challenge it. But I didn't love that version. I tolerated it. I maintained it. I tried to upgrade it, but I never felt home inside it. There were moments, tiny, fleeting moments, when I'd say something honest or do something spontaneous, and I'd feel this flicker, this spark like, oh, there I am. But then I'd look around, afraid I'd gone too far, afraid someone would finally see through me, afraid I'd lose the approval I'd worked so hard to earn, so I'd shrink back. Again, years passed, and I got really good at playing roles. I knew how to make people like me. I knew how to not be a burden. I knew how to succeed in a way that looked impressive, even if it didn't feel true. But there's a cost to all that pretending. It doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, like erosion, until one day you look in the mirror and you don't recognize the person staring back at you. That day came for me around age 26. I was in a relationship that looked perfect on the outside. We posted pictures. We made plans. We had a future. But I felt hollow. One night we were sitting in the car after dinner. We weren't fighting, but something was off. The silence felt sharp. I looked at her, and she looked tired. Not physically, emotionally, like she had been carrying a version of me that didn't feel real. I asked her, "Are you okay?" She looked at me and said, "I don't know who you are when no one's watching. I don't know why." But that sentence broke something open in me. I went home that night and cried harder than I had in years. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I was finally being honest with myself. The truth was, I didn't know who I was either. I had built my entire identity on being what I thought people wanted. And somewhere along the way, I forgot who I actually was. That realization didn't fix everything. It didn't give me clarity or purpose or peace. But it was the beginning of something. It was the beginning of letting go. I started small, saying no to plans when I was drained, admitting I didn't know something instead of pretending I did, writing more, being alone more, asking myself questions I had spent years avoiding, like, who am I when no one's clapping? Who am I when no one's looking? Who do I want to be when I'm not trying to be liked? It was terrifying, but also strangely peaceful, because the more I stopped pretending, the more I started healing. And healing doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it looks like crying in your car at midnight. Sometimes it looks like walking away from things that once made you feel safe. Sometimes it looks like being misunderstood and letting people misunderstand you. But every time I chose truth over approval, something inside me came back to life. Piece by piece, I started remembering, not discovering, remembering. Because the real me was never missing, he was just buried, under fear, under pressure, under expectation. And it took me 10 years to realize I was never too much. I was just surrounded by people who preferred less. I was never lost. I was just never taught how to be found. And here's the part that still gets me. The freedom I was chasing through achievement, through validation, through perfection, it was always on the other side of honesty. Not success, not popularity, not being enough for everyone, but being enough for myself. That's what changed everything. I stopped asking, what do people want from me? and I started asking, what do I want from me? The answers weren't always clear, but they were always mine. And slowly, I began to rebuild, not a better version of myself, a truer one. I stopped chasing a life that looked good and started building a life that felt real. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop running, when you stop molding yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown, when you stop apologizing for taking up space. And that peace? It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, subtle, still. It sounds like a deep breath you didn't know you were holding. It feels like coming home, to yourself, and maybe that's the real success. Not becoming someone impressive, but becoming someone honest. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you've been pretending for too long, if you're tired, if you feel fake, if you look in the mirror and don't recognize who's there, I want to tell you something. I wish someone told me, you don't have to become someone else to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to be free. You don't have to be anyone but you, the real you, to be enough. But it takes courage. It takes letting go of the applause. It takes choosing honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. It takes forgiving yourself for all the years you spent hiding. But it's worth it, because on the other side of all that pretending, there's someone waiting for you. Someone strong, someone kind, someone whole, and they've been waiting a long time.